Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. A very special podcast today. We're not talking Supercoach, but we're actually talking AFL. I've got a very special guest with me, Ron Issko, who is the president of the AFL Fans Association. Welcome, mate.
How are you, Swiz?
Mate, I'm well, and it's just a pleasure to be chatting footy and AFL with you today.
Pleasure to talk to you and to all of your listeners. And yes, as president of the AFL Fans Association, what we do as a voluntary organisation is essentially give fans a voice. We give fans a voice, and the way we do that is through social media, through our website, also the media. They talk to us anytime there's a fan issue. They seek our input, and we find out what fans feel about the various issues through our social media engagement with fans, through our surveys that we've had, through the website. We also talk to all the clubs, and we have had a number of regular meetings with the AFL, met Andrew Dillon a few times, and we will continually meet with the AFL to put the fans' voice forward, so that when issues arise or when there is something that the message isn't getting to the AFL, hopefully we can provide it to them and work out a way to make the fan experience the best it can be. So essentially that's what we want to do. Make the fan experience the best it can be. Look, we've got the best game in the world. We think we're the best fans in the world. And by having dialogue with the AFL through the clubs and through the media and finding out exactly how fans feel about each issue, we think we can improve the fan experience all the time.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, my listeners know how to find me on Swiz26. More importantly, mate, how can my fans out there find you and get in contact or follow the AFL Fans Association?
All you do is type in to Google AFL Fans Association, and it'll come up with our website. It'll come up with our Facebook page. And on our website, there's links to our Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. We're on all the social media outlets. So just the easiest way is just to type into Google AFL Fans Association, and it'll take you to our website. And from the website, you can link to our social media. We've probably got about 25,000 followers and members that we speak to all the time through social media and the website. Plus, we have had our annual survey. We've run it for the last 3 or 4 years, where we get like 4,000 responses, which is a great number, and quite extensive survey. So we believe we know how fans feel about just about every issue.
No, I love it. And all those details will be in the show notes as always, guys. So if you haven't picked up what Ron said there, just go to the show notes and you will find that. And it's fantastic service. I know I do answer those surveys. And this is pretty well how it started, because outside of, I feel like sometimes Dwayne's World on SEN, or the Midday Madness, there's not too many ways to voice your grievance. I'm probably lucky in that situation that I do have a podcast with my my two co-hosts, and Chris and Ben, so I can come on here more when it comes to Supercoach, but I do throw in some of my footy grievances sometimes. But yeah, I've been wanting to do this and sort of share some of the things that not just me, but fans and our fan base do DM me and go, I'm sick of this, I'm annoyed at this. They share the frustrations, and you're the man that can potentially get the job done, or at least talk to the people who are in power. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to have a chat. And I know a lot of the issues I have align with a lot of the fans of some of the survey that you did put out, your last survey. So I think there'll be a lot of crossover. Really good opportunity, guys, through the comments here in the YouTube video. If you do have anything, feel free to comment and stuff as well. And I'm sure I can share that on to Ron as we go.
Sure. And feel free when you come to our website to join as a member. It's free to join as a member. When you join as a member, you're able to email us with issues which we take to the AFL. On social media, you just follow us. You can put your comments there. But what we find is through our website, a lot of people write us emails and say, I've got this issue with my club, or I've got this issue with the AFL, and we collate them. And when we meet regularly with the AFL, and not always Andrew Dillon we meet with different parts of the organisation, different departments, we bring it to their attention, and which is good, because we've been around since 2013. And initially when we started, media didn't speak to us a lot. AFL weren't interested in speaking to us. And over time, over a decade and a bit, slowly but surely, the media, not only do they speak to us, they ring us when there's a fan issue. And the last couple of years, the AFL have opened the doors and said, yeah, come and have a chat to us. So we can get issues and we can get information to the AFL where fans have got a grievance. And it is hard because if you ring Dwayne's World on SEN or you write an email to the AFL, you don't know who it's going to. Through the AFL Fans Association, one thing I can guarantee you is we will we'll bring it to their attention. I can't guarantee they'll do anything about it. We'll put pressure on them, but at least you know that your grievance or that issue has been brought to their attention.
Exactly. And that's all we can sort of do. Like, a lot of the times you might just have an individual complaint, and like every individual complaint, it might just sort of be swept under the carpet. But if enough people are complaining about the same thing,
Right.
and like every other part of the AFL does have a voice. We know Patrick Dangerfield running for the players and the voice there. The umpires are the same. The fans are such a big stakeholder of the game, so it's great that we have somebody representing us.
Exactly right. We are the largest stakeholder in the game. And as you said, fans, they've got a Players Association, they've got an Umpires Association, they've got a Coaches Association, and they're all funded by the AFL, by the way. But the Fans Association, we're a voluntary group. We got no funding. We get some donations from some people. Essentially, we just run it the way we have to run it. And hopefully one day, maybe, who knows, if the AFL will fund the Fans Association. We follow suit with the EPL in the UK with their soccer. They've got a supporters association that is partly funded by the equivalent of the AFL. So we talk to them and we ask them what their experience has been. They're at least 10 years ahead of us in terms of their association with their league. But certainly we're the largest stakeholder and we should have a say. And we keep on increasing that. But we do it in a way with the AFL, a collaborative approach, a friendly approach, non-antagonistic. And I'm not interested in having fights on the media and making comments. It's all about, here are the fans. This is what they're saying about an issue. Can we talk about it? And can we reach a compromise? So it's all an approach, an adult approach, a friendly approach, collaborative approach, because despite what some people might say about the AFL, at the end of the day, we've got the greatest game in the world and we want to make it, we want to keep it that way. So we're all on the same page when it comes to making this the best game in the world all the time.
Yeah, and that's why I've called this How to Improve the AFL, because as much as we get frustrated, there is a lot they do right, and that's why they're a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we continue to put our hard-earned towards them each year and attending games and stuff. But there are things that, like as a fan, and Ron's the same, they can definitely improve, especially from the fan experience. Some of this is actually crossed over with, in regards to players, and just because I'm lucky in the position I am, I get to talk to players. I work with former players. So there's a couple of things that they've said to me, kind of in a bit of confidence. And I'm happy to actually kind of share it as a general view. So we're going to put a few of those things out today. So we'll start off the key issues. So AFL Fixture, AFL Expansion, affordability, membership ticketing, game day officiating of the game, pathways, awards, and the political agenda. They seem to be the key issues that came up in your fan survey, and also what myself and other people have been talking to me. I don't think there'll be any surprises there from you, mate.
None at all. The AFL fixture is one that really frustrates fans.
Yeah, so we'll start off with that. Obviously, it's been a massive day because the day we're recording is as the cyclone is approaching Brisbane, and they have cancelled 2 of the games in round 0. But we'll get into the round 0 in a second. But the floating fixture, for me, I'm not even sitting in my break at work and just going, you know what, I can come up with a better fixture, and I'm just using pen and pad, and I'm 3/4 of the way done. Because I'm like, it surely isn't that difficult to put out a whole fixture throughout the season, and it gives the opportunity for people to plan what they're doing, especially if you're traveling interstate. What is your fans sort of saying about that, mate?
So we put in our last couple of surveys about the floating fixture. So the origin of the floating fixture is from COVID days. The COVID days where we understood, and the AFL did a great job keeping footy going, but they had to be agile and nimble and move games around, which was terrific. And we thank the AFL for that. And they had to have a floating fixture for obvious reasons. But they did say that when we come to the end of COVID and things go back to normal, we won't need a floating fixture. But they didn't do that. And the reason was the floating fixture gave the broadcasters and the AFL an opportunity to actually pinpoint the better games for the Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, the marquee games, the marquee spots for the best games, because when you do the fixture at the start of the season, or when they do the fixture in November of the previous year, you don't know that Hawthorn are going to be a great team. You think they might be further towards the bottom of the ladder, so you can now move games or not actually specify which games are on which day or which night until later on in the year. So I understand from a broadcaster's point of view to get the best games at the best time slots. I get that. However, fans also need to be taken into account. And when we're used to, for the last 150 years, getting our fixture in November of the previous year, and we can plan holidays, we can plan travel, we can plan having weddings and 21st birthdays, not to clash. Just simple thing like, I want to go to see my team in round 17 and it's playing in Alice Springs. Well, you don't know whether you have to book Thursday, Friday, Saturday or Sunday. You don't know how many nights accommodation. And by the time you actually find out when your team is playing in Alice Springs, they might give you 4 weeks notice, or guess what? The prices and the accommodation costs are skyrocketed. And if you could have it earlier. So what we're actually saying to the AFL is, if you're going to have the floating fixture, give us much more notice in 4 weeks so that fans can plan. So it feels like they're going to keep the floating fixture. So we've said, okay, if that's rock solid and you're not going to change, give us more than 4 weeks. So we ask the fans, what do they want? Some want 8 weeks notice, some want 12 weeks notice, and the AFL have to take into account. So I think they've gone from 4 weeks notice to 6 weeks notice. Still not enough, but we're pushing. So it's frustrating for fans. It's frustrating for clubs. We had one of the CEOs from one of the teams on our at one of our committee meetings, and he said that it's frustrating for clubs as well, and it's frustrating for players and for doctors and for all these other people around the club that have to make plans. Again, they look at it and say, well, I'm scheduled for round 17 or round 19, but I actually don't know if I'm going to be away from my practice Thursday, Friday, Saturday or Sunday until 4 weeks before. So it is frustrating for a lot of people, not just the fans. So again, we've impressed on the AFL. We want more notice.
Yeah, and there's two parts and you're right about the staff there. So my myotherapist who works at Richmond Footy Club, so she's obviously got to practice outside of it. So that would affect her. And then from a fan point of view, so I used to work at Crown. I'm pretty open about that. So there was about 10,000 staff when I was there. I think it's reduced now, but we would get our leave forms for the next 12 months where we could put in for 12 days off. And because it's shift work and you're working at night, usually clashes with AFL games. So what would usually come out, the fixture would come out in November, and everyone would be going to get those forms so they could put their Saturday nights off so could go and watch their team play. And that's just the reality of shift work. I'm still in shift work with what I do now in public transport. So I feel like a lot of these things, like people who work Monday to Friday 9 to 5 jobs, don't kind of have an understanding of the kind of the stress and the difficulty of actually getting days and nights off to go and watch your team.
Yes, that's exactly the case. And again, fans write to us, make comments in the survey, and they express those views too about people that do shift work, people that want to travel interstate, people that live in regional areas. It impacts everyone. So fans are okay with it during COVID, but I don't think fans like it now, but the broadcasters do. And I guess the balance for the AFL is broadcasters like it. The broadcasters pay a lot of the bills, and the fans, and they've got to get the right balance. And we've told the AFL, I think your balance is wrong. I think you're too more siding with the broadcasters here. Understand the reasons for it, but I think you're just going to give fans more notice. If you're going to have the floating fixture, give us more than 4 weeks, 6 weeks notice so we can plan better. Understand you can't do it in November, but you've got to give us more notice. So that's basically where the floating fixture stands.
Yeah, and if the floating fixture was still packing up crowds, I'd kind of could understand it. The biggest thing with AFL, there's nothing worse than actually watching a game and, it's half full or quarter full and there's absolutely no atmosphere because you can feel it from watching it on your TV anyway. So the biggest thing, and like you look at Premier League, sometimes there is some late swapping and stuff around like that, but they are always mindful of what's happening for the fans because they want to pack stadium. And then the second part comes in next. And I think sometimes the AFL forgets that, like the players, everybody there wants, 40,000 at Marvel. You want, it's close to 70, 80,000 at the G because it completely changes the dynamic. And if people don't have enough time to plan about going, you're going to obviously, it's a detrimental to that part of the game.
So it's a balance between TV ratings and fans at the ground. And maybe they've got it slightly wrong at the moment.
Yeah, and then it's the same with the round zero. I think everyone's had their opinion with this whole round zero kickoff. The weather gods have obviously tried their best to intervene for this year, which is amazing. I get what the AFL is trying to do, and no one's got a problem with this whole idea of trying to promote the game up north. Why the NRL are over in Vegas? I think nobody's got the issue there. But you've got a situation next weekend with Melbourne where we have the public holiday, which is just vacant. And because like Labor Day, unlike maybe your Good Fridays or your Anzac days, and we still have footy obviously on those days, but there's other things potentially going on with people's lives, and people are more likely to go away because they're around school holidays. I always feel like Labor Day, people are sitting there going, okay, there's not really a lot going on. There's no footy for me to watch. And I think it's a perfect opportunity. You could do the round zero, or however you still call it round one. Put your 2 games or 3 games in Queensland, put your 3 in New South Wales, even take it to Tassie, but you should still have your opening game at the MCG and maybe a public holiday game down here in Victoria. And I think all the fans would be happy with it.
So the fans initially didn't like the idea of round zero or opening round or round -1, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Truth be told, I mean, they did get pretty good ratings and they did get good attendances at the games. And when you speak to fans from New South Wales and Queensland, they're very excited about it, that the spotlight's on them. So in a way, from a Victorian perspective, you might think why we're missing the opportunity, as you say, for the long weekend. But from fans in New South Wales and Queensland, they love the fact that the spotlight's on them and it's all focused on those games. So I think, again, the AFL are going to keep it. While the attendances are good and the ratings are good, I think they'll keep it. It is confusing when you look at the ladder for the first 6 or 7 or 8 rounds and teams aren't on even number of games. Hopefully they'll get rid of that ridiculous anomaly last year where teams that played in round zero had 2 buys before teams that didn't play in round zero had no buys. And that doesn't seem right. But if they can iron those out, again, probably keep opening round, just make it as fair as possible. And we're just going to have to live with it. But if the attendances are down and the ratings are down, then they should scrap it. So again, if that's their reasoning for it, they're going to make sure that they get the ratings and the attendances. Once the attendances fall off and the ratings fall off, just bring it back to round 1, Richmond Carlton opening game.
Yeah, and even so, like my personal view is, I love the idea the Queenslanders and New South Wales get their spotlight as well. And as I said, I'd share that even with Tassie potentially and have the 3 states going. But you could put a couple of the lesser drawing teams. Imagine, say, the Bulldogs of North Melbourne, who obviously struggle with supporter bases and stuff like that. Put them as the Labor Day clash at the MCG down here or Marvel, just as the one game in Victoria, and they'll still get the focus up in Queensland and New South Wales. But there's 2 teams that all of a sudden could be playing in front of a packed house because we know Victorians are going to rock up. And yeah, like I would like some sort of innovation like that. It's obviously not usually a thing for the AFL, but I think it would give those clubs a real opportunity to, put their stake in the market down here.
I think at my next meeting with the AFL, Swiz, if you're available, I'm taking you because you've got some great ideas for fixturing. So when we meet the fixturing people, you're going to come with me.
Oh, mate, I'd love to do that. I was listening to Travis Old, the former AFL fixturing guy today. So, I've always got some thoughts around that. And in talking about the buys, it'll be interesting what happens when Tasmania come in. So I think that will much spread out some of these buys that teams are obviously having because we'll be in a 19-team situation for a while. I don't know if the AFL has even given you any indication. It doesn't seem like they've got an idea yet of when the 20th license will be brought in and who even that could be. So we could be in a situation where Gold Coast and GWS were quite lucky. It was one after the other. Port Adelaide and Fremantle, the same situation, where now we've got this, potential where we're going to have a buy for 5 years, 10 years each week. And talking to a few NRL supporters, they're not a huge fan of it because your team might end up getting the buy in, round 1 and, later in the year. And it's some teams get more advantage because of when they're going to have their buy.
Absolutely. And we did live with it when the other teams came in. And just as what I'm hearing in terms of when a 20th team would come in, I think you said 5 to 10 years. I'm thinking maybe even more than 10 years before a 20th team comes in because the viability of a Northern Territory team or another team from WA or South Australia, I think is a long way off. So we'll just have to be used to a 19 teams and each week there'll be a bye. I don't think that's going to cause a massive problem, but it's going to be revisiting what we used to have anyway.
We'll finish off here with a bit of the scheduling, AFLW, VFL, community sport are obviously three key things for the fans. So AFLW, at the moment, they're stuck in the sort of that summer period, probably not the greatest conditions, hard grounds. I think most people want to kind of see them brought more in line with the AFL men's competition and how that kind of looks, because at the same time, they kind of want their free moment. But at this, would it work better to actually have the girls, it doesn't necessarily have to be a curtain raiser, but I feel like if it's more in line with the season, it probably doesn't make it. It makes it easier for everyone, even from the staffing point of view too, because staff are also now it's kind of stretched longer. They might have different coaches, but I know a lot of like the doctors, the masseurs, and all of them carry on throughout the season. So it might help them. Maybe it's the fact that it might be too much on the resources. I don't know, but yeah, that's my general feel about that. The VFL competition, how that looks obviously going forward and becomes a reserve competition. Is there more that I guess the fans are talking about that? And then there's also this balance of community sport, and it's my biggest frustration, especially from like when I was as a cricketer, and they'll put a game on a Saturday, and they're like, oh, there wasn't well attended. It's like, well, all the cricketers are out there playing on a Saturday. No different to footy sometimes. I know it's hard to schedule around stuff like that, but when you've got, Noble Park first ball one, you might be taking away from a fan base who actually want to go watch a game at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock because that game's on. And I don't think there's enough discussion around that. And that's what I know some fans have been saying to me, going, I would love to go to more footy, but I'm so involved with my community footy club. How does the balance come from that?
Yeah, and I think just talking about the AFLW first, they've been sort of moved around a bit over the years. I mean, the AFLW has come, what did they start in 2017? They started with a bang with 50,000 people or 30,000 people, and grand finals, 50,000 people in Adelaide Oval or whatever it was. So they've had their ups and downs, but I think they're stuck at the moment. They're not sure which part of the season they should be played at. And they also want a longer season. They don't want a 9 or 10 week season. They certainly don't want, I think they had last season 3 rounds and over 2 weeks, which was not very good because I think it caused a lot of injury and overplayed and overload and so on. So I think the AFL and the AFLW need to work out what is the best time, and whether it is more when the men are playing and they don't want to call them curtain races, they want to call them double headers.
Yeah.
Because curtain raiser sounds like it's an inferior thing.
Mm-hmm.
Semantics here. Double headers. And I think they're going to have to experiment with that because people will go. I've been to AFLW games and they're great. The atmosphere is fantastic. The women playing there are so excited to be playing. They love their sport. They're good at it. Compared to, when it started, obviously it improves each year and it is exciting. Now, I know some people think there's not a lot of scoring. It improves every year and the players improve every year, and more girls coming through with Auskick and the junior ranks, and they're super skilled players. So they're just going to get the right time of the season, and more people need to go and watch it. And I love going and I really enjoy it. I can't really tell you too much more about VFL and community sport, but I hear what you're saying about the opportunity to be able to go to community sport, but also if it clashes with other sports as well.
Yeah, for sure. My suggestion would be from the AFLW point of view, because I've put up there about that whole pre-finals bye versus the grand final bye, where you could have the season more in line with the ladies play each team once, keep the fixture fair. Maybe you play whoever you play home one year, you play away the following year to keep it balanced. And during the mid-season bye that we have at the moment, which is all stretched out, you could just have one bye where all the men have the weekend off, and you could get clear air for the ladies to maybe kick off their season or have a special round where the focus is on them. And then be it the pre-finals bye or the grand final bye, that could be the AFLW grand final. And again, it's clear air. We still get footy on that weekend because a lot of the issue we have, and a lot of fans say, is we've got this bye weekend. God, I wish there was footy on. And I think there's a solution there for the AFL to take on board and go, well, if the AFLW is running currently, there are ways that you could sort of still give them some focus and clear air while also running the season concurrently and stretch out their season.
So what we're really saying is there are a lot of options to consider, and we just want to get it right. And it'll take a little bit of time, but we'll get it right because the AFLW, as I said, is great. It's great, and we should give it the airtime it deserves.
Yeah. 100%. And a lot of the fans, some fans are just AFL men's fans, some are AFLW fans, a lot crossover, but yeah, there's a bit of that. We did talk a little bit about there with Tassie and what the 20th team could look like. Like, I think the Northern Territory is the way to go, and it links. There's so many political parts to it. And I know we had the AFL, the voice from an Australian point of view, and people will disagree and agree with that. It's a little bit more to my heart because I've lived in the Northern Territory for small parts, and I've seen the impact football has for Indigenous communities. And it's not just necessarily Indigenous, but I can see what it would do. And we spend so many billions of dollars spent on Indigenous affairs. Like, even if we're running a bit of a loss, I think it helps and supports that part of our community so much more. So that's my thought on it. And talking to a couple of people who I know, Indigenous people who are fans up there, it would add so much for it. But as you said, the hard thing is this could be a 15, 20 year down the track. The AFL can only do something if they're going to do it right. And feel like they can make a profit, feel like it's going to be right for the broadcasters, and that's where it gets difficult, where for me, I sort of have a look and go, I'd like the AFL to be a bit more transparent on what is the future of the AFL looking at 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Yes.
What are, the opportunities for, like I had somebody on from Canberra the other night on our show, and he even says, it's great when the Giants come to town 3 or 4 times a year, but we've actually got a full-on community. We're packing out that ground. And we've seen how long it's taken for Tassie just to get to where they are. How long are we going to have to do it to maybe we get more Giants games, or we get our own team? Country footballers, or country fans. Ballarat's been awesome, but again, there's so many people. Victoria Country provides so many quality AFL players, but also so many fans. And if you're coming from Mildura or Albury and trying to watch an AFL game, it's a whole weekend excursion. And I feel like from our point of view, and obviously yourself as a president, is there anything we can suggest from the AFL to go, you are leaving this fan base out. We've got to stop thinking city-centric. And is there more that we can be doing, especially when you've got media now coming out saying, we've got to scrap the preseason competition. And fans were literally going to me, what opportunity are we going to get to see? Because that's our one time a year the footy comes to us.
So, again, going on what fans have told us when we asked them the question about Tasmania coming in, and fans were so happy and so supportive of Tasmania coming in. Then we asked a follow-up question. There'll be 19 teams. What do we think about the 20th team? And a lot of fans said Northern Territory. So what the AFL will be doing, no doubt, is a feasibility study. And it took Tasmania a long, long time to get their license. And so it's a long-term thing. And you've got to make sure that it's viable in Northern Territory to have a team, or Canberra, or a third team in Perth. It needs to be viable. It needs to be backed. It's way above my pay grade. I'm a volunteer. I get nothing. It's way above my pay grade to understand feasibility studies, but I understand the concept that the population, the sponsors, the corporates and all that need to be able to support it. And yes, obviously the AFL will have to put money into a new team, but then they'll need a return, I guess, on investment, and that'll take time. So, yes, fans would love to see a Northern Territory team, and a lot of the Indigenous players come from there, and their footy is so exciting. And don't they play during summer?
They do in Darwin, but winter in Alice Springs. So right, this is where the argument comes, because people are like, well, Alice Springs obviously got a lot of issues in itself as a town at the moment, and it will need more, I guess, important hits than us from a political point of view to kind of sort where that goes. But I think if it's the sort of thing where long-term, the government and these sort of bodies like the AFL need to kind of sit down and work out a long-term plan, because I feel like the AFL could be a massive part of trying to restructure and what that town would look like, and, provide not just football pathways, but job and employment opportunities more for people in that area, not just Indigenous, but everybody in that area. So I think there's definitely a plan, and that's no different like I think country football, where a lot of the country football fans are screaming out the same thing. Like we've seen country football clubs go under. There's got to be better ways where I think the AFL can find ways of supporting, and it might be, we already got a game in Ballarat. Can we take a game to the community? Can, say, North Melbourne, for example, instead of selling games to Perth and, losing that, I know they're trying to build their little Perth base, but there's fans here going, we're seeing the Bulldogs go, 80 minutes, and for some people it's half an hour to go watch them play 3 games against smaller clubs. Why can't we take a game down to maybe Bendigo or Shepparton or something like that with the right investment from the community? But then we're opening fans from that whole region who are diehard AFL fans.
And the AFL, one of the AFL's aims, obviously, is to attract more fans, more people, to make them supporters and fans to the game. So moving it to regional areas, moving more games to regional areas, and having AFL coming to your town and packing out the stadiums and introducing those that may not be big AFL fans to become AFL fans is exactly what the AFL want. They just want to keep on growing. So again, all your ideas you're suggesting and what fans are suggesting makes sense, but I think the AFL just take their time. They like to analyse, they like to do these feasibility studies and so on. But really, when you think about it, the AFL is the biggest sporting code in the country. We have the biggest number of members of clubs. We have the biggest number of attendances at the games. We have the best ratings. So they do tick a lot of boxes, and we have to we have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, we can do better.
Of course.
Always do better. But we do also have to acknowledge, and that's why my approach with the AFL is acknowledge, work collaboratively, don't bash one another. I'm not into that. I'm into, yep, we all want the same thing, but maybe you can consider this and consider that from the fans' point of view, because the AFL have to consider broadcasters, they've got to consider clubs, they've got to consider other stakeholders, not just fans. We, the fans, just think, and they've got to consider everything. And that's not an easy job. And I'm not a spokesperson for the AFL, but I understand that they've got a balancing act. And I'm just there advocating for fans to say, well, don't forget about us, because we happen to be the largest stakeholder. And they know. We saw games during COVID with no fans. How bad was that? That was shocking. So they know about fans. So we are important. Anyway, affordability.
Mate, this is your topic right here, because I know the fans. Even with everything going on with Cyclone Alfred today, SEN was still dominated by KO talk and stuff like that. So food, drinks, travel costs, the lot, membership and ticketing, mate. This will be right heart to the Fans Association. I'll throw this part over to you, mate.
So when we do our surveys, the top 5 issues come up, and affordability is ticketing, memberships, cost of food and drinks, cost of traveling, car parking, the whole thing. That comes up in the top 3 issues, affordability. So you got mum and dad and 2 kids, and you want to go to a game. If you don't have $150 to $200, you're going to struggle, because by the time you pay for the tickets, by the time you pay for the public transport, if you park the car, and the kids, you might feed the kids at home beforehand, but you know what, when you smell the pie and the hot chips, you're going to buy them, aren't you? And you're going to have a beer, the dad, not the kids. And you're going to be out $150 easily. And people love their footy and they want to go, but some can't afford it. And the cost of living pressures over the last couple of years is biting into it. And we've just got to remember that this game is the fans' game, and we don't want to shut out people because they can't afford it. That would be terrible. So we keep on saying to the AFL and the clubs, keep your membership costs down, keep the ticketing down. And the AFL's, they have kept some food prices and general admission tickets for the MCG and Marvel at a lower price, but not all stadiums. And as soon as the AFL mention it, we get emails and text messages and fans on our social media saying it's all very well for the MCG and Marvel to have a family ticket of $54 before people, two adults and 2 kids. But at West Coast Eagles, one ticket, a general admission ticket, is $59. To pay $59 for one GA at Optus Oval for a West Coast game is more than for 4 tickets at the MCG. So what we're saying to the AFL is, we know you don't control everything. You know you don't control all the stadiums and so on, but can we have universal pricing? So why should I pay $27 for Richmond West Coast at the MCG, and why should I pay $59 for Richmond West Coast at Optus? Same game. Why should I pay such a different price variation? So can we have universal pricing? So if it's a GA ticket at MCG, at the Gabba, at Optus, at Adelaide Oval, it should be pretty much the same. Well, we put that forward to the AFL and the food and the costs and the food prices and drinks. And, of course, each stadium has different caterers and so on. And the AFL have a lot more they can do with at Marvel, less they can do at the MCG and less they can do at Optus. So it's not that simple, but we understand that. And that's why they get paid the big bucks. But we're just putting the fans' view, which is more universal pricing, keep them down if you want to have more fans coming. It's a simple equation. It's just not easy to achieve.
Yeah, for sure. And like I've seen it traveling interstate, and I get shocked when I'm like I'll go, okay, I'm in Sydney, let's go watch a Giants game because I want to support them. And it's actually I really saw this when I was on the Gold Coast. And the Gold Coast to go get a seat for me, I think that day was about $57, $58, which I was absolutely shocked. I can't use my AFL membership up there, so here I go, I've got to pay that. And the next day we went off to the NRL, and we managed to get front row seats. And I think I paid $22. And we were just like, the friend who was living up there, he's like, well, this is why I go to the NRL more than I go to the AFL up here, because the costs. And it's simple as that. He's like, I don't really have a foot in either camp, but I just enjoy sport. And this is where the AFL, you're right, needs to understand, because we all know the cost of living. Some people are doing it harder than others. But yeah, when you've got such a difference between stadiums with that general admin cost and even membership cost. And I do know, obviously, West Coast, they've obviously got a waiting list with their membership because there's more of a demand. But in saying that, it's not like they're still not going through cost of living issues as well. So you want stadiums, especially when you've got teams who are poorly supported. And like there might be opportunities to try to get fans in and see games there. And, when you're looking at, as I said, GWS and Gold Coast, I'm going to go watch them. I'm not going to go pay $60 because why would I want to do that? So there's got to be some sort of thinking around even I don't like the idea that, you're paying more of a higher price to go watch Collingwood and West Coast, but at the same time, some of these other clubs where there's empty stadiums, there needs to be more done around those costs to get them in. And as you said, all those other costs too, like, even if you jump on the train in some states it's free to travel on match days. Others, you're paying $10 a ticket. If you're taking 4 people, that's $40 right there. The parking's gone up. Marvel parking is now $30 if you want to park there as well. So that's shot up by $10. And then if you want to even stay home, like Foxtel and KO have both put up their costs. And I know a lot of fans were ringing up SEN today, complaining again about the coverage of KO. KO came out last year and said they were working on some things, but nothing's been done there. And people are like, well, I want to watch the footy. I'm forking out $400, $500, $600 a year to watch the footy, and I'm getting substandard coverage. It's just frustrating because that's, as a fan, all we want to do is watch footy.
Exactly. And on the TV also, the fact that there's not going to be any free-to-air Saturday games. For Victoria, I think it's a whole season. In the other states, I think it's the first 8 or 10 rounds. That's disconcerting because free-to-air footy is just part of Australia, isn't it? It's just Australian to watch your footy on a Saturday free-to-air. And if there's nothing on a Saturday or less than it used to be, I wonder what's going to happen in 5 and 10 years' time. Is this the prelude to sooner or later there won't be any free-to-air footy? That'd be sad, wouldn't it? So we impress on the AFL that you've got to do everything you can to keep free-to-air footy, but that's a bit of a shock. No free-to-air footy on a Saturday for the whole season for Victorians. That's something that's going to get. Hopefully, we don't get used to it, and they change that next year. But who knows?
Well, that's been my worry for ages, having friends over in the UK, and the only way sort of got to watch Premier League is sometimes by subscription. We know NFL, NBL, NBA. A lot of it's you've got to buy season passes and things for that now. If you don't have ESPN or so, I know a lot of them are going subscription based. Even if you want to watch Champions, you name it, it's all another cost to you. And this is the problem where obviously the AFL are looking at it, and the broadcasters are paying a lot of money to broadcast the game, which is great because then the players are getting their bigger chunk, but somebody's got to pay for it, and that's the fans, unfortunately. And you'd hate to be in a world in 10, 15, 20 years' time where, like the cricket's gone now, where most of the cricket is on pay TV. It was a fight to try to get some coverage on Channel 7. Thank God the Ashes and the Indian series was still on free TV. But imagine a world that's where we could be heading down, where people sitting at home, it's a Friday night and I can't afford to pay for KO or Foxtel, I don't get to watch the footy.
And they'd have to bring out their old-fashioned transistor radios, but it can't be analog; it's got to be digital, and that'd be sad. But I know around the world, a lot of sports is on pay TV. However, we're not around the world; we're Australia, and it's just something about being in Australia and the Australian way of free-to-air footy, and we'll just keep on pushing to make sure that stays the way it is.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I think the membership costs haven't gone up too much. There were a few couple clubs supporters talking to me about the fact that a couple clubs had, but I feel like that's been a little bit more realistic as well. So I'll give the AFL a thumbs up for there, because I don't think that's dramatically changed, especially even with the AFL members and the MCC at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's been pretty good. And also we have to remember how good the fans were during COVID. We couldn't go to the footy, but we paid our memberships. And clubs in the AFL have to remember that. Fans paid their memberships during the COVID years when we couldn't go to the footy. So make sure you look after your fans clubs. Make sure you look after your fans, MCC and AFL, because we did the right thing.
For sure, mate, 100%. Okay, we'll move on to our next topic, which is the membership and ticketing, a little bit more in the detail. The big one here is the releasing of the tickets. So, we have the same situation every day and every year. AFL goes, today's the release day, Ticketek or Ticketmasters, depending if you're especially in Victoria, because there's multiple games. It's a bit different being in the non-Victorian states. And I apologise, this is a bit Victorian-centric, this part of the conversation. But they open up, we're going to first 5-6 rounds, and 10 club supporters are trying to get on at the same time in Melbourne, and Ticketek crashes. They're in waiting lists like that. It might be a Saints supporter trying to get a Saints Bulldogs game, but they're in a waiting list because Collingwood Essendon's on at the same time or whatever, and all of a sudden they get logged out, or the same issues seem to happen every year. And I think the AFL needs to work better here with the companies that sell the tickets to come up with a better plan, because I think we cover this topic every season.
At our last meeting, was last December with Andrew Dillon and Jay Allen, and we said to them that you've got to do something about buying tickets online through Ticketek and Ticketmaster. We went through and explained step by step the frustrations of exactly what you just said, waiting in the queue, sometimes being shut out, getting through, and then when you come to pay, you get locked out, sitting at work trying to get a ticket. You're meant to be doing your work, and it comes on at 10 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you got to wait for an hour, 2 hours sometimes. And we just impressed upon them that we've got to come up with a better system. So they listened to us. Now, do they control Ticketmaster and Ticketek? No. Hopefully they can put that forward to them, and they've heard it before. It's not news to them. They know, and they know supply and demand. And when things are in demand, people just have to wait in the queue. And that's all very well to say that, but we hear a lot of unhappy fans, and there must be people that are experts at how you sell tickets and how to do it in a way where you don't have to wait in the queue so long, and it's just a smoother process. Now, some people get through the queues very well, and we get feedback from people saying, got in, waited 10 minutes, got out, perfect. But then we get others saying, I went in, I waited an hour, then I got kicked out. I waited 2 hours, just about to pay, and I got kicked out. So it does vary, but we certainly hear that it is a clunky process that needs some repair. So we impress upon the AFL, can we improve it? And that's part of the thing. The fans' experience need to be better, and that is definitely one area it needs to be better.
And we said before about those sort of costs and more expensive for some clubs than others. I think Essendon supporters are the ones, in particular, Carlton supporters, because they also do play at Marvel, some of their games. But pretty well much, if you want to go watch the Bombers at Marvel, you need to get a reserve seat. You need to upgrade your membership. And that's an extra $10 to $20, $30 every time. And I was chatting, well, this is one to my heart, because I know my wife and my mother-in-law go through it every time. So that's an extra $30. That's that wait time just to upgrade their ticket, even though their membership might be costing $800-900 as it is beforehand. So I know it's a frustration for supporters. The other thing that I've also added in there is we talked about the support during COVID times. We talked about the diehard supporters, and there are some supporters. I know from a Richmond point of view, Trout's our guy. You've got Catman down Geelong, but you've got so many passionate supporters who jump on a plane and they go support the team around the country. They attend every game, and then it comes to grand final and trying to get tickets. And some of these supporters miss out. And it's like, I attend every game, I do the right thing. And there is no current reward system for fans who are dedicated and rock up each and every week. And that's something I would love to put forward to the AFL and say, we need to fight. In these day and ages where they scan barcodes and know when people are attending and stuff like that, it's not like we don't have the technology where we can sit there and say, hey, this person, Swiz in this case, we know you've gone to every Richmond home and away game. We know you've gone to, multiple other games. Come finals time, maybe we'll bump you to the top of the queue and let you have access to the top 100, the top 1,000 people who have attended games. I think there's something we could probably do there to reward our fans.
The reward system has been suggested by a lot of fans, those that have been a long-serving member. They may not have the highest membership level, but they've been a member for 45 years and they have the, let's say, home and away or just the home membership, but they've been there doing it for 45 years. They don't get to go to the grand final unless you have the highest level where you get a grand final guarantee. So therefore you're priced out of it. Those that travel interstate, rain, hail or shine, and then don't go to a grand final, and then people that happen to be working for a corporate that gets corporate tickets to the grand final, that sits in the corporate box and says, oh, grand final, yeah, I'll go. But it doesn't have an impact on them as the fan that's been going in, week out. Now, interestingly, so since 2015, we've been pushing the AFL for more grand final tickets for competing club members. So it used to be 15,000 per competing club member, and we put it through the media pushed, the AFL said, this is back in 2015, 2016, no, 15,000 per club, competing club is all we can do because we've got corporates and sponsors and the AFL members and we've got the MCC members, 15,000 per club is all we can do. We kept on pushing and the media helped us push it. And in 2017, just before the year that Richmond won the grand final, they raised the number of tickets for competing club members from 15,000 per club to 17,000 per club. So they found 4,000 extra tickets after they said there's no more tickets. So we've been pushing through the media, keep on mentioning it every time. In our surveys, we have the question about grand final ticket access, and we keep on mentioning it. When we meet the AFL, we talk about it. And then last year, they increased it from 17,000 per club to 17,500 per club. At our meeting last December with Andrew and Jay, we said you should make the 17,500 per club. Let's just not go in 500 increments. Just go to 20,000 per club. So make it 40,000 of the competing club members there. Now, when Collingwood played in the 2023 grand final, they had a lot of trouble with their members getting grand final tickets. And Craig Keller, the CEO of Collingwood, the biggest club in the country, he said there should be at least 20,000 tickets per club. So we've got the support of Craig Kelly. We've been pushing it. The AFL know about it. They're saying they can't actually do it. But I'll let you in on a little of a secret, and you and your listeners. We know, we have information. We can tell you how they allocate grand final tickets down to the last one. So there's 100,021, I think, is the capacity. We have information, and we got it. Can't tell you how. Maybe it fell off the back of a truck. We know how they allocate tickets to clubs, to ex-players, to commissioners, to the Auskick, to umpires, to you name it. So we have told the AFL, because we know how you allocate the tickets to grand finals, we can show you where there's fat, where you can take some of that out of here and give it to members. So we're going to be pushing, and we want at least 20,000 per competing club so that more of the diehard fans can get to go to the grand final. That's one of our biggest push with the AFL is more tickets. Now, they're probably sick and tired of us saying it, but we're not going to keep quiet about that, because imagine a St Kilda fan, finally, they not only get to a grand final, win one, and they're not there. That would be heartbreaking for them. Or, the Melbourne fans, they missed out when they played in Perth. They want to see a grand final win here. So we want to make sure that those diehard fans get to the grand final. If we can push for an extra fans to go, we've done our job.
Yeah, no, 100%. I love the fact that you guys are doing that. And that also then links into my members benefits, and something that I know a lot of fans complain every year, where we went from having our lanyard and our card and our hat and our scarf and that, and now it's like here's your $20 voucher, or in some clubs nothing, and it seems to range vastly from club to club, which is just amazing too. I know Channel 1 supporters like, I think it is actually might be Essendon. It's like if you're a 5-year, on every 5-year increment, you're getting something good, but in between, it's not a lot now. And I know some people don't care. Like I know Richmond now go to the point where, okay, we'll give you a voucher. You can choose if you want the traditional stuff. That's fine. If that's not for you, there's different ways to do it, which I do like. But in saying that, some clubs used to go way out. I know for Richmond, again, we used to always have the player night at Crown for sort of your gold, your platinum, your silver,
right,
your members. And it used to be a great night. You'd spend, you get to know the players. You hear from the president, the CEO, or the former players would be there. Great way to mingle also with the other members. And then they scrapped that. And all of a sudden, you're just like, that was one of the great nights on the calendar. And talking to a couple other fans, they're like, we had those sort of fan experiences. Now we don't have that as part of our membership. So yes, my membership is part of supporting the club and going to the game, but there was all these other benefits we used to have, which were brilliant, have been now taken away, because I guess some of it was for COVID, but some of it was getting removed before that. But now we're not getting to see that back.
Yes, and that's something that we have members writing to us from various clubs saying they're disappointed, and they're disappointed that they used to get this or used to have that access, or now it's been watered down. Here's another secret. Because we're the most passionate fans in the world and we love our clubs and the AFL know that because we love our club so much, in a way, whatever they do to us, we're still going to turn up.
Yeah.
So they got a little bit of an advantage over us, but at the end of the day too, we love our club. We still should say to them, hey, why are you taking these benefits away from us? But the clubs know they can push us a little bit because we're just great fans and we're going to support no matter what. So if the AFL decided we're going to play a grand final at 3:00 in the morning, Carlton Collingwood, guess what? They'll pack it out. It may not suit everyone, but they'll still pack it out. And if Collingwood's membership benefits are watered down, they'll still stay members. So they can take a little bit of advantage of us, but there's a point where we've got to say, now hang on, we are the lifeblood of your club and we're the lifeblood of the AFL. Don't take us for granted. So that's what I try and impress them. Don't take us for granted.
100%. And there would be, I feel like there is going to be a tipping point. Like they wouldn't want to go too far, because we've seen this happen in other sports where all of a sudden fans start, protesting. They don't go, there's shutouts of games. And I'd hate to even consider that would get into an option in an AFL level, but you would, as you said, it'd be nothing worse for St Kilda or Melbourne, and they, you had that year, and all of a sudden half their fans weren't getting access, or it got watered down their memberships, where they're only getting access to home games or and nothing else, and there is always a tipping point with people. So. For now, as you said, they've probably got us just where they want us, and it's great that you do remind that. But I do know from fans that it is an ongoing frustration.
It is. Just don't take us for granted, and that's what we impress because we talk to all the clubs, and they know all about the AFL Fans Association. We keep in touch with the presidents, the CEOs, and a lot of the marketing people. And they know the fight that we're having. And when I say fight, it's not really a fight. The support, the advocacy we have for fans. And it's not just advocacy for fans to the AFL. It's advocacy for the fans to the clubs as well. For the clubs not to forget the fans. So they know that we're doing it, again, collaboratively in the right way, because we want the same outcome, don't we? Successful clubs, lots of members, lots of fans going to the games, lots of fans that don't go to the games watching on TV, free to wear. We want all that. But I keep on saying, just don't take us for granted.
Yeah, for sure. Game day, mate. It's something that is a bugbear of a lot of supporters, especially these sort of after goal music now. We've got a whole lot. And each club's different. Like the way the Brisbane Lions do it and embrace it, awesome. And I love the fact they've got that part of it. I think sometimes it's over the top, especially a couple of games I go down to Melbourne. It's just like some of the stuff they do, it's just no need. Some of the game day activities, especially from an outside point of view, some of them have got taken away, which has always been something good for the kids. They roll up, they might have to kick the ball and have targets. And there seems to be no rhyme or reason sometimes with that. Some days I look at Yarra Park and it's buzzing. Other days, Yarra Park, it's got nothing there. I think the Gold Coast Suns is a club that does this very well. I've been up there multiple times, and I'm like, great how they organise the activities on their training oval. So it doesn't matter if kid or a big adult, there's always something to do. Player access for them seems to be good. The entertainment, be it a game beforehand. I don't know, Richmond used to have that. They won't be doing it this year because they're playing VFL games down at Beaconsfield, but you could get in early, maybe watch the second, see your future players, and then come in. So each club does it differently. But no doubt there's so many fans that get frustrated because some clubs and some things run by the AFL is quite poorly done and could be done a lot better.
Yeah. So the feedback we get from fans, and it's mixed. So some things are quite clear. We want to go to the grand final. Also, the other aspect we didn't touch on was want a day grand final. 3 out of 4 fans want a day grand final. They don't want a twilight. They don't want a night grand final. We want a day grand. So some things are, like we don't want the floating fixture. You get that coming from fans. When it comes to this game day atmosphere and all of that, you get mixed views. And I'll just generalize. The younger people, and I put myself in the older category, the younger people love the music, love the, what do they have on the screen there? Catch Me or Kiss Cam, music after a goal, the lights flashing. So some fans say that's great. And other fans, possibly my age, 40s and plus, they can't hear the person next to them. It's too loud. Why do you need the flashing lights? Why do you need the music after every goal? What is Kiss Cam and what is Are You Paying Attention? So it's mixed. And so maybe, just maybe, it's an age thing where some people love it and some people don't. And maybe they're just thinking about, like me, in the good old days, it was just a goal and you cheered and clapped and whistled or whatever. So there's no right or wrong here. But in terms of the atmosphere, I think what they're trying to do, the AFL and the clubs, is just have no dead time and just have excitement all the time. And maybe some of them go over the top. And that's where some people say, hey, it's a bit too loud, a bit too much. And then some people are saying, yeah, we like it. So from a fan's point of view, it's all over the place in terms of pros and cons of it. Player access is one that, if you're not part of a particular membership level, you don't get to see the fan. You don't get to see the players. So if you've got a special membership, I think the Richmond one is the Morris Rioli or one or something, where you can, after the game, you can go and see some players, talk about the game, and I'm sure other clubs have got the access too. But for your general member fan, very little player access, which maybe that could be improved.
Yeah, that's what we said earlier about that whole sort of the members' days and stuff like that. It's it used to be a good part of the calendar, and we understand the players. They are full time, but they don't train full time. It's they do have moments throughout their week that they can do stuff. I know some players embrace it and love it, and I know talk to some players and they absolutely hate it. So there is the two different worlds there, and you can usually tell which ones are which. So be mindful, but at the same time, if you're getting paid $500,000 a year, and your job is to, not just entertain the fans on the field, but there is a part of it comes off it. I think there is a part to that. The one I want to touch on that second part is safety, and this is brought up regularly by fans, and it's a hard one because we're in such a unique game where. You and I support the same team, so it's a bit different, but my wife is a passionate Essendon supporter. A lot of the time we do not sit together because we will. I've nearly been thrown out by arguing and abusing my mother-in-law at a game before. But if I want to go and sit with my Essendon supporter wife, I can. It's such a unique feeling, unlike a lot of sports around the world where they do divide it. And I don't necessarily like that situation. But I do understand there's some fans that want to be just with their supporter base too. And this gets hard around ticketing. And we always know there's families, there's alcohol involved. There's a lot of different emotions going for the game. And the public want to go enjoy the game and feel safe at the game. The players, the umpires, we all want to feel safe. And this is a difficult one because people will always react in different ways. But I know it is a key point for a lot of fans out there.
I think the AFL put a lot of focus on safety, and by and large, I'd have to say that we're well behaved. I mean, by and large, we're well behaved.
I like
I mean, fans from different countries see AFL and going, "You sit together? You're kidding me?" Especially from the soccer and in the EPL and so on. So by and large, I think the fans are okay. Now you're going to get some rat bags, and you're going to get some people that drink too much, and you're going to get some swearing, and you're going to get some people saying the wrong thing and a bit of this. We don't want them coming to the footy, and the security at the games are generally pretty good. You've got the antisocial number you can ring, and we just have to get the rat bags out of the game, because I want to sit. If I go to Richmond Carlton, I'm happy to sit with my Carlton mates, and we should be able to sit together, and there can be some banter, but there should not be any issue with safety. So alcohol's a bit of a problem, but I think by and large we're okay. But the ones that cause problems, get them out, ban them. Any antisocial behaviour, ban them. Any racism issues, ban them, because we want to bring our kids to the footy and we want to feel safe. And that's paramount. And I know the AFL pay a lot of attention to that. And but generally fans tell us that most of the time they feel safe. And it does depend where you sit too. If you're sitting near the cheer squads or near a dry area or so on, it could be different if you're in an area where there's a lot of drinking, which is a bit of a problem. But I think that the security they've got there does an okay job. But we're just going to call out bad behaviour and ban those people that behave badly.
I think that's one more for our actual fans, talking to them, saying, if you do see stuff, it's fine to speak up. Maybe just from the grounds point of view, I feel like growing up there was probably more defined dry areas for families. I know it's a little bit more difficult with ticketing sometimes these days, but I feel like there probably could be a little bit more conscious around more designed dry areas for families to kind of sit in, because as we both acknowledge, that alcohol is usually the cause of these problems, unfortunately. And I've got no problem with people having a few drinks at the game. That's no problems, but it's the ones who get carried away and then take it too far. And you really don't want to be exposing, especially kids. Like, kids don't need to be involved in that, seeing that sort of stuff. That goes for everybody. But of course, I always think, you want, they're the next future of fans coming through, and you don't want their experiences ruined because of a few bananas.
Yep.
Great. All right, officiating of the game. I know it frustrates us all as fans.
No, it's the top issue is umpiring and changing of the rules.
No surprise at all.
So what fans tell us is they're looking in round 1 and they're saying this is holding the ball, and round 3 it's completely different. This is a push in the back in round 4, and round 6 that's not a push in the back. Sometimes in the first quarter that's a 50-metre penalty, in the last quarter that's not a 50-metre penalty, and they scratch their head and they look at each other and they say, I don't know the rules anymore. Now, I'm exaggerating a little bit because it's a hard game to umpire, and I'm going to stick up for the umpires. It's a bloody hard game to umpire. And sometimes the umpires aren't in control because the rules are the rules, and because the rules are subjective in a lot of the cases. And sometimes you see an umpire calling it and an umpire not calling it, and they see it differently. It just frustrates fans. But I think it's the constant rule changes that frustrates fans. And because there's so many rule changes, maybe the umpires just don't keep up with it. The umpires are not full-time. They're part-time. They do a great job in their part-time capacity. But is there a thought that if they're full-time, will they be better? I don't know. I've spoken to Rob Kerr, who is the boss of the Umpires Association, and he tells me that game, whether they're part-time or full-time, is not the issue. It's the rules. It's the interpretation of the rules that's the issue, and the changing the rules that's the issue. So I believe him. There was a time where Laura Kane would come out and explain some of the rules if it was confusing, and then they stopped that. I think fans like that. I think fans really appreciated Laura coming out and saying, now, this is the way it is. We got that right. This one we got wrong. So we've learned from that. And if you get it wrong, okay. I mean, the umpires apparently get 8 out of 10 right. That's better than players. Players have a worse efficiency than the umpires. But if you've got it wrong, admit it, and let's try and fix it rather than pretending that it was right. And I think fans would appreciate that transparency and more explanation. And even if umpires come out and talk about it and say, well, this is the interpretation, and 3 of the 4 we got right, that last one we got wrong.
I think, and that's the one I get messaged a lot. Like, no, we have the coaches interviewed afterwards. We have I hate player interviews afterwards because, inside our four walls, we talked about this, we did about that. I'm like, cool, there's nothing different that I didn't already know what you've told me. I would love nothing more than if it's one umpire from the game or after the weekend. Like, we have all these talk shows now. Get some of the umpires from the weekend to sit down with Laura Kane and to go through, okay, we admit we got this one wrong, we got this one wrong. This is what I saw from my point of view. Fans would actually sit there and go, I acknowledge that. I get that, from that angle, I guess how you didn't see that. No problems. Like, you're always going to feel hard done by, but I feel more hard done by because there's no explanation from AFL House to support that. And they get, as you said, thrown under the bus because they're making rule changes. And there's no one from AFL House coming out to explain that. And then it's just all put back on the umpires. And I've done local umpiring more from a cricket point of view, but have done a little bit of, footy umpiring around. And I get it because everyone's interpretation is different. But if you're not allowed to speak on your behalf and then the organisation that's looking after you doesn't speak on your behalf, well, all you're going to get is angst against you because nobody's explaining to the people watching from the outside. So very frustrating. And as you said, part-time umpires, there is some talk about, why do we need them to go full-time? Or could we have a group of them go full-time? What would they do full-time? Well, there's plenty of school footy, under-18 footy. There's a lot of other community footy that they could easily probably back up and do a second local game or whatever. And I think that might actually help, especially with younger umpires coming through, because imagine having your senior umpires mentoring a younger umpire at a school game or something like that. And I think we would be more better for the group. The other part also is we have a lot of players with concussion, and I think I'm going to talk about players and what they do afterwards. But their careers are ending because of concussions, serious injuries. There's like a great version is McCartan from St Kilda and Sydney, and his career's been ended. And like somebody like him, I was unsure why the AFL wouldn't go and say, well, you could continue your career as an umpire here. Like, we could make you a full-time umpire. You're obviously not going to be on the same wage as an AFL, but you'll still be on a good wage. You're still in the system, and you know the game. You understand the game. The fitness isn't your problem. So it'd be a great sort of transition. We've seen some former footballers do it. Geordie Bannister is a good example of that. So I think there should be a more from an AFL point of view like that. And I think the fans would have a better connection because they're like, we know these guys that play the game. They've got an understanding of the game. It's great to have them part of that panel.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good idea because there are a couple of ex-players that became umpires, and even the goal umpire, David Roden, who seems to be a fan favourite.
Amazing. Bit of personality. It's great.
Absolutely. But I know you've got their match review and tribunal that also does concern fans. Consistency is what we want. If that's a 2-week suspension, that's a 2-week suspension. Don't make that. These two would look identical, and one gets 1 week, one gets 4 weeks, or one goes straight to tribunal and one doesn't, or one gets off completely and one doesn't. We just want consistency. I know we've been talking about this probably for 100 years about tribunals and match review, but fans are forgiving. If we have consistency, we'll accept it. Fans are forgiving. We are a forgiving bunch. And if the umpires come out and say they get it wrong, okay, yeah, you've admitted it, fine, move on. And just let's also have consistency with the tribunal and the match review panel. That'll be good. And let's not complicate it where we don't have to complicate it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so AFL, if you're watching this, transparency is what we want, and consistency. It's that easy. And I think every fan watching is just nodding their head right now and go, yes, it's not hard.
Not hard.
It's not hard. Pathways is probably a small issue, but it's funny that people do talk to me about this because they've again got kids in public school and sort of getting missed out because they have got to look at trying to transfer into the private system, where we know the national championship, where compared to all other sports who have these sort of pathways, like especially the American sports, you sort of got a better understanding of where these kids are coming through because you get to see the system more, and the fact that we're trying to balance these kids through year 12, is there better ways that we can kind of do that. I've talked a little bit about umpire pathways there before with the potential full-time and even players going into that. I've had a couple of players reach out to me about, their retirements and sort of being kind of scrapped by the whole AFL system. It might have been an AFL system for 80 games, 100 games, not a premiership player, not an award winner, and career finishes and out the door, you're 25, 26 and see you later kind of situation. Now, I do know the Players Association is trying to get better with that, especially if you're more from an injury. But if you're not injured and you've just, unfortunately not made the grade for that year and your contract's up and nobody wants you, there's obviously some issues with that. And then that comes around, I guess, with the fans, because fans are family, they're friends, and they see and they might have a kid who's about to go through the system. They're watching their mate who's just been, spit out and then like, okay, I'm a nobody now. There's a lot going on here, which I think the AFL, we look at from the outside with not much information from the AFL, how they work with this. And even talking to some players, there's a couple of girls who I know going potentially to hit the AFLW system and talking to their family, and they're like, the limited information that they're getting at the moment to know where they're going to be sitting in the scheme of things, what's going on. It's kind of confusing when they're trying to plan their, in this case, their daughters' lives out as well.
I know that just recently, Ken Hunter, the ex-Carlton champion, was talking about a group that he's establishing or has established, the fifth quarter, for players that have retired, that have possibly lost their way a little bit after footy, whether they've had concussion or depression or whatever, just lost their way. And that I'm not sure if the group's up and about the fifth quarter, just for some players to go to get some help, whether it just be career advice or if they've suffered concussion or they're confused as to what to do. But the Players Association, I thought, is also meant to do that. And I have met with the Players Association, Paul Marsh, and he assures me that the players can come there and get all the assistance they need. So we've spoken to, the Players Association, and I thought that was looked after pretty well. But according to what I read, just only what I read of what Ken Hunter was saying, is more needs to be done for players that have retired and come out of the game. And it's a pity that some players lose their way, which we don't want them, because we idolise them when they were playing, and we want them to have success after footy.
Exactly. And, when they're not, before they were players, they were probably fans as well. And now that they're finished, they want to be fans. And, talking to one supporters, like former players, like, I don't even go anymore. I'm so disgruntled with sort of my treatment at the end, and it's sort of disappointing because these should be the people back either at local clubs or promoting the game. And there's we know there's only a limited media opportunities, but there needs to be probably more thought. And that's why I brought up the umpiring idea earlier, because we probably need to look at pathways. Even with coaching, I know professional coaches happen over in the American sports pretty well here. Unless you've been in the AFL system as a player, it's very hard to sort of get opportunities outside of that, even though probably Chris Fagan's probably the one that's leading the way there, where he's come through more the state ranks and stuff and never actually been a former player. But I know, talking to a few people at lower levels, it's hard to kind of get your foot in. And even media opportunities, I know it's a lot of, holding on and gatekeeping to there. And I'm sure there's probably better ways that they could be probably even doing that. So, and the other one that I did skip over, Australia versus international, when it's that balance between not because we love the Gaelic players who have come across that, but that is a lot of resources going into, going international to find players there. And that's maybe missing opportunities for players who might not be in the private system here or the traditional channels. And we've improved getting them opportunities, but there's still a lot of people probably in Australia who probably never had the opportunity to, put themselves forward to play AFL. And maybe it's balancing that resources from a footy point of view.
Sure. And so I guess linked to Australia versus international with the Gaelic football, which I remember when they were playing it was exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Linked to that is the state, bringing back state of origin. And there's talk about that. So the captains, they had a captain's day last week, and most of the captains said they'd like to see state of origin come back. Maybe not every year, maybe every third year or something, for State of Origin to come back, because the NRL do it really well. I'm not an NRL fan. But you know what? When the State of Origin's on, I might have a look and see, because they seem to be great games. And I remember the State of Origin games when we had Victoria versus South Australia, some amazing games, and we've lost that, and that'd be great to bring back. So if the players are for it, I think the fans will be for it too, bringing back State of Origin. I'm not sure about Australia, International or Gaelic. I actually don't know what happened there, because it was going on. They'd come here, we'd go over there, they'd come here, and it was really exciting, but then it just seemed to stop. Don't know why.
A further thought with the State of Origin, if you're doing it every so often as carnival, whatever, you could potentially have a curtain raiser with the best local players from each state, and you could probably come up with some sort of team there, which gave them their opportunity to have their moment on the sun as well. Like, just kind of spitballing ideas off the top of my head there. AFL Awards continues to come up, and it's. I know some fans get really frustrated. Again, the transparency, I think, from the AFL and the media around this sort of stuff. When awards night should be. The Brownlow hasn't lost some of the edge with the public. I know a couple of people were talking to me about the Academy Awards, for an example, where back in the 80s and early 90s, it's such a big thing, and is the Brownlow kind of starting to lose that because it just becomes a midfield medal, and there's players getting votes where, did the umpire even watch that sort of game? The All-Australian team is a big talking point. I feel like sometimes are they picking a couple of players just for the clickbait kind of, because they know everyone's going to talk back around that. So there's some things there, and I've put the representative football, which we've touched on, the State of Origin, where I think from a fan point of view, it's just the transparency from the AFL.
Yeah. So one of the things that fans have said is with the Brownlow or the Midfielders Award, because I can't remember the last time a non-midfielder won it.
Yeah, it's probably a ruckman. I'm trying to think which ruckman have won it.
Did Tony Lockett pull forward?
Yeah, he did. Steins, yeah. Scotty Wind.
Yes, but we're going back a long time.
Well, a long time, aren't we, mate?
Yeah, showing our age. So it's a Midfielders Award, and some are saying that the umpires don't get to see the stats after the game, because sometimes some midfielders or some of the awards, when you look at the game and how the umpires voted compared to the stats on the, this player got 42 possessions and didn't even get a vote, and maybe for the umpires to see the stats before they give their nominations might help. There's some are saying that's a good idea. Some are saying no, leave it the way it is. But it is disappointing that the best centre half backs and the best full backs just won't win the Brownlow anymore, and probably the best centre half forwards and full forwards won't win a Brownlow anymore. It's a midfields award, and that's a bit disappointing, because you've got some great defenders that save the games and win the games, but they don't get they won't get anywhere near the award. What can you do?
Yeah, and the All-Australian's interesting. I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I did suggest last year at some point, I was like, why can't they just send be part of that the chat, the president of the AFL Fans Association, and now I'm chatting to you. It's a bit odd, but I was like, they kind of needed a fans representative, because I've got all the other stakeholders. And I know everyone kind of gets biased with their own team, but you can't tell me that Kane Corns isn't biased towards South Australian people. And, they had a WA, I think it was maybe Djakovic or something like that, was biased towards and putting WA players forward. So it's not like these guys can't come in with their own biases. So why can't there be a couple other sort of stakeholders there? And because we've got your group, it'd be interesting to have your discussion or somebody from your group in there as a representative of the fans. So that's my thing. And the Defenders Award, be big with this was the mental health side of things. We know that side, but there's a guy that has probably become the figure of that, and that's Danny Frawley. And I know a lot of people like the Fist Award and Golden Fist Award that it was. Yep. It would be a great honour I think, for him and his family, if their family wanted to accept that. But sure. I do think defenders need some sort of standing in the game.
Great idea, and they've talked about that, the Danny Frawley Award for a defender, because we can't forget the defenders. We always give the accolades to the midfielders, and also Norm Smith medalists tend to be the midfielders too. So it's no wonder a little kid that's growing up that wants to be a footballer, what position do you want to play? Midfield. Everyone wants to play midfield because that's where all the awards are. That's interesting there. Having a fan representation, having a seat at the table at AFL House would also be a good idea, because when they're sitting there thinking we're going to change some rules or we're going to change something that's going to impact fans, all the people sitting around the table, maybe they need to ask a few fans, what do you think about this idea? Well, let's go and ask for fans. And it would be good if you or I or some other fan was sitting there saying, before you make a decision about scrapping membership cards with the barcode and everything has to go digital, which they did in 2022, maybe you give fans the option of using their membership cards with a barcode rather than having to be digital, because it caused a fuss, and then they scrapped them in 2022 and brought them back in 2023, and they went through that whole expense of scrapping membership cards, and they had to bring them back. Had they asked the fans, what do you think of this idea? We probably would have said, well, don't scrap the membership cards. Give people a choice. Membership cards, they can scan their barcode, and digital. And then maybe over time, wean them off the membership cards. But don't scrap them overnight. And they're the sort of things that we do say to the AFL. When you're sitting around the table making decisions, who's speaking for the fans? Who's taking the fans' issue into account? And they tell me that they always do. But it'd be good if you were sitting at the table or I was sitting at the table and saying, hang on, let's ask the fans.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And that's like I was actually going to say, without saying too much, but I worked in a job at some point in my life where the group was making decisions on on something, and they had never anybody representative have actually been in that position before, and it used to really frustrate me. And it's amazing that this sort of situation happens. So maybe it's something for the AFL. The last one, it's a big one, I know, for a lot of fans.
Another one.
You're never going to please everyone with this, but the political agenda side of AFL, I'm sure this is in the top three, mate.
Gambling is the in the top three. Gambling, fans say, I haven't got the figures in front of me, but the majority of fans say, look, you got to reduce the gambling advertising. Otherwise, if you don't reduce the gambling advertising, we are just grooming our children to become future gamblers. Now, we get emails and messages from mums and dads saying, my 10-year-old son knows the odds for the first goal kicker. They know under and over and the line. What do you mean they know the line and unders and overs and the odds for the first? When I was a kid, I just knew Richmond were going to beat Carlton, and the odds were, that's it. There weren't any odds. Just we were the favourites. And they're pleading with us saying, you've got to reduce the advertising at the stadiums. You've got to reduce the advertising on the radio, on television, on the apps. There's too much gambling advertising. And that is something that fans are very strong about. We're talking about the vast majority of fans that we survey are sick and tired of the amount of gambling advertising that's really not healthy.
100%, mate. And I feel bad because I'm coming in from a Supercoach insider point of view. We do talk Supercoach. It is not necessarily money that we're putting in, but I do know that a lot of people do pay for cash and stuff like that. So we're our own victims of this as well, because what we do, we promote, but we're not exactly promoting a cash thing, but it all does fall into gambling. My wife continues to tell me that all the time. You're still technically, you're not gambling without but you are still that action of it, and that the highs and the lows that come with everything like that, and the addiction side of it, which is huge for fans, players. We've seen umpires get caught up in it. It's it is an absolute blight on our game. We know there's a couple of clubs that moved away from the pokies being in their venues, made a big step towards that, even if it's it's going to hurt their long-term revenue. But there's definitely a lot more that has to be done. And we get it's a balance from the AFL, because the gambling, the alcohol companies and whatever, they're the ones that are putting the most money compared to what some of the other companies out there. And it's hard to get sponsorships. And when you've got gambling companies throwing large amounts of money, they want money in the game, but there needs to seriously be a balance, especially, as you said, when you're going to have kids attending games, or you're going to have players going out to kids' clinics and stuff like that, and they've got their jumper and it's some sort of gambling sponsorship or whatever on it. It's not a good look at all.
Not at all. And that's something that there was a government, federal government parliamentary inquiry into gambling, not just for AFL, but for all sports. And the recommendations that came out of it were you have to reduce the gambling ads. And in fact, in that parliamentary inquiry, they used one of the questions from our survey, AFL Fans Association survey, questions about gambling, where 80% of fans said you've got to reduce the gap. That's in the parliamentary inquiry report. So we're pretty proud that we're pushing on behalf of fans to reduce gambling to protect everyone, and we'll keep on pushing for that. We're not saying you can't gamble. We're just saying let's just be reasonable about the amount of gambling advertising. When it comes to theme rounds, mixed bag. Some fans love it, and some fans say, just give me a game of footy. Some fans think it's the best thing to have the theme rounds, and some fans say, just give me a game of footy. So it's not so hard and fast what fans think. There's a whole mixture. Personally, I like the theme rounds. Some people say it's too many, too much, but fans have got different views, and there's no hard and fast. This is what fans say. It's a mixed bag in terms of should we have theme rounds, shouldn't we have theme rounds? There are pros and cons for all of them.
Yeah, my thoughts, like I think they've released like there's going to be some sort of multicultural round with everything coming up and on multiple rounds. I think it starts to lose your appeal if every second week or every week you have an around. I've got no problem if they go, these are the 4, these are the 6, these are the 8, no problem. And it's a clear air between it. So you might go, round 3, okay, the next one's not till round 6, round 7, whatever. And every 3-4 weeks, so you've got the 6 or the 8 spread out throughout the season. Perfect. Make it a big event, and we have the focus. And there's some of the ideas. And obviously we have the Indigenous game, but even that now seems to stretch over 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, and not taking anything of Indigenous because I'm as pro that as well. But it now takes away the focus from that, what used to be a great Indigenous week or fortnight that we used to do. Even the sort of the women's and the pink, I think the pink at the G, the day. That used to be a great event as well, and I feel like that's sort of been taken away. It loses its focus on it. Maybe there's something more that can be done around the AFLW and the AFL men's games for that. You have these emergency services and celebration games just pop up randomly, where if you had a whole round, and that's where the big one now, mental health, people are pushing, and you could just have that whole weekend where it's focused. Everyone's talking about it, having a discussion. So I think the AFL needs to go, here's the 5 or 6 that we want to focus on. We want the clubs to embrace it and get right involved, and not just AFL clubs, AFLW, VFL, local clubs. Let's make that the weekend where the whole football community is focused on what would be such a, the mental health one. The mental health, everybody get involved, and you'll see local clubs, you'll see every club getting massively into it. And I think that would be way more accepted than, this week we've got, this celebration, and next week we're celebrating that, and the fans who are more on that negative side just losing the plot, going, I don't care about this.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, that if you have too many, you water down the impact of it. And if you have a certain number and you focus on it and put the spotlight on it, people will embrace it. Not everyone, but a lot will. But if you have it every second or every week, then it loses what it's trying to achieve, because one week there's this, and the next week and this week, and people just sometimes, some people just want to see Carlton versus Collingwood, no fanfare, just Carlton versus Collingwood, and nothing other than just Carlton versus Collingwood, with nothing else attached to it. So yeah, I take your point, but again, fans are just mixed about this, and I can't say like, we want more grand final tickets for competing club members. We want less gambling advertising, and we want more transparency and understanding of umpires and less rule changes. I can tell you fans are categorical about that. But when it comes to this, it's a mix. It's a mixture. I take it.
Yeah, great. And the last one is the community sponsorship, community recognition. One of the things that I love, like I see this like in the NRL, the NFL, stuff like that, where the player actually comes from, for starters. So when the player's name comes up, or there's AFL very rarely ever shows what junior club they've come from, or any mention from that. We do not do this at all. I think it's an area which we can massively improve. I even know, at least with cricket now, they're doing a really good way where they're the best volunteers in each competition or whatever, or the ones who have been serving the competitional clubs for over 50 years or 60 years, they get invited to the long room or special events, or they're holding the banners or the flags or whatever for like the Ashes test or whatever test has come to town for that, or the different events. They really make a big deal out of those who are working in community sport. And I think, again, that's another one. We have so many brilliant volunteers that, pretty well dedicate their life to helping these AFL footballers achieve their dream. And
Sure.
I think, again, the AFL probably could do more to help promote them on, be it one of these rounds or some sort of event.
And the only time you probably hear about the junior club is when they win the Brownlow and they get up there for the acceptance speech and they go, yeah, well, it all started when I was 6 years of age, and Swiz is my coach, and he taught me how to handball, and I got to thank Swiz for that. Thank you, Swiz, wherever you are. That's the only time you hear about it, probably. So, yeah, you make your point.
Yeah, no, that's great. Mate, we've covered a lot. I couldn't thank you any more to come on and talk footy and talk the issues out there. Again, guys, it'll be in the show notes. If you've got anything to add, put it in the comments, whatever. We'd love to hear from you. Ron, I'm sure the team would love to hear from you guys. Join, subscribe, become a member, be part of the, what did you say, 25,000 members that you've already got?
25,000 followers and members. So you can follow us, as I said, just type in AFL Fans Association in Google. It'll come up with our website. Go onto our website. You can become a member. It's free to join. And you can send us emails, and we send you a couple of emails during the year. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all the usual ones, and talk to us that way. And then you'll receive surveys. We'll do a major survey, and we do lots of polls all the time. If you have a look at our Facebook page, we're doing polls all the time. And all we want to do is just understand how you're feeling and what is really important to you, so that we can take it to the AFL. And we're lucky that we've got a relationship with the AFL, that we meet with them on a regular basis. Catch up with Andrew Dillon now 3 times already, and he's happy to catch up with us, and the various department heads are happy to catch up with us. So when we go and speak to Laura Kane's team about umpiring and rule changes, we'll say, look, fans really like the transparency of explaining the umpires and what's happened. So more information we get from fans, the better we're equipped to talk to the AFL. And as I said, the media are really on our side. The clubs know all about us, and I'm just a footy fan. Happen to be a Richmond footy fan. I'm just a footy fan. I love my footy, and I do it. And all the committee members on the AFL Fans Association, we just love our footy. We've got committee members, South Australia, Port Adelaide fan. We've got Sydney Swans fans. We've got Melbourne fans. We've got representatives in all states. So we're not just Victorian-centric. We hear what's going on. Like, we know that Optus Oval, it's $59 for a general admission ticket, where it's $57 for 4 people at the MCG. So we hear all those issues. And at the end of the day, I'm just a footy fan. All the members of the committee of footy fans, we're volunteers. We try our best to get a voice for the fans so that the fan experience can always be better. But we want to do it in a way where we're collaborative, friendly, and work together. We're not into this bagging each other, and we won't do that because that's not my approach. Even though I'm a Richmond fan, it's not my approach to bag anyone. It's to be friendly. I know some people won't believe it as a Richmond fan, but we are actually pretty nice people when you get to know us.
No, I love it, mate. Ron, thank you so much. I couldn't appreciate you more jumping on. And community, if you haven't already, as I said, like, subscribe us, but more importantly, get on the Fan Association. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, community. We'll talk soon. Bye.